Josh, you ready? 4 o'clock. All right.
Yes, sir. You can start the meeting in 3, 2, 1.
All right. We'll call to order the City Council Special Meeting CIP Update Series agenda for Monday, March the 25th at March 25th, 2024 at 4 o'clock p.m. With that, Madam Secretary, roll call and certification of quorum. I will certify that we have a quorum present with the exception of Councilmember Hernandez, who did let me know he's running a few minutes late. So we'll put his time of attendance when he gets here. With that, citizens' comments. Looks like we have one, so I'll let the Mayor Pro Tem introduce that.
Yes, Mayor, we have one gentleman that wants to speak this evening. Nathan Doe, if you'd make your way to the podium, state your name and address, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak this evening. Thank you for coming out.
Hello. I'm sorry, I don't know this meeting is for drainage and transportation, and I want to talk about one particular project regarding sewer. I don't know if it's appropriate time to talk about it.
No, you can let us know. You got 3 minutes. Introduce yourself and your name and address, and go ahead and give us your comments, and we can take that under advisement. Thank you.
My name is Nathan Doe, and I own a property on Collin Boulevard, 1855 Collin, between McHart and Hughes Ranch. And so there's a sewer line that on schedule to be constructed this year, but it has been delayed twice. So now it's on schedule for 2026 construction. And each time it's delayed, it costs the city the estimated cost increased by $500,000. So my particular property needs sewer and water service. So I just want to bring this project to your attention so that it would not be put off again, or maybe you can bring it back to the 2025 construction, which it was on schedule as of the 5-year plan of last year. So I have some, I guess we don't need picture because it's on the city website, and I guess you're familiar with it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Doe. Maybe we can get a write-up as to why the delay and what we can do to fast track it. Obviously, we can't dialogue since that specific subject's not on the agenda for tonight. So with that, we'll move forward. That was the only citizen to be heard. Okay. Thank you for that, and thank you for being here tonight. With that, we'll move to new business, Capital Improvement Program, CIP, Update Series, Drainage and Transportation. So with that, we'll kick it off with staff.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. Welcome to the CIP Update Series, today featuring the Drainage and Transportation portions of the Capital Improvement Program. We're going to include an update on our drainage crew and the program that we added over the last couple of fiscal years and the progress that they've made to date. In the transportation side, we recently completed the road assessment and have an updated pavement condition index information and data that we'll talk about that's going to guide our programming and our priority streets in the future. And then just in February, we talked about the possibility of additional funds being allocated for road rehab projects. So we have a follow-up on that about what roads we could expand that into potentially. And then an update on our plan to ramp up the sidewalk reconstruction and gap program that was included in the 2023 bond program. So at this point, I'll hand it over to our Director of Engineering and Public Works, Lorenzo Wingate, to get the program kicked off. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today's presentation will be the first installment of the 2024 CIP Update Series, and will provide updates on drainage and transportation-related projects. We'll cover our future with the purpose, provide updates on drainage and transportation projects, as well as discuss current and future operational priorities. The City of Pearland wants to maintain a holistic approach to the capital improvement program. And to do this, we leverage various planning documents to assess the capacity of our existing infrastructure and forecast future needs within the community. The capital improvement program and its incorporation into the annual budget is a derivative of planning the city's future with a purpose. The creation of the 5-year CIP is an in-depth year-long process involving every department within the city. The 2024 through 2028 CIP was finalized September 11, 2023, and the planning process for the FY25 CIP was initiated in October of 2023. We're currently in the second quarter of the CIP process, and staff is reviewing and finalizing project scopes and verifying funding options prior to presenting the proposed CIP to the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately to council for consideration and adoption. In June, the CIP workshop related to the proposed FY25 budget will take place, and the CIP update series will resume in October of 2024 with updates to parks and facilities related projects. And at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Raj Shrestha, the city engineer, for more detailed updates on drainage related projects.
Thank you, Lorenzo, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update about the drainage series. The drainage section will be broken into 3 distinct categories. I will cover the first section, which will focus on drainage history, guidelines, policies, and major projects. The second part will consist of CIP drainage project status update by Lorenzo, and third and the final one will be about drainage maintenance. Eric will update the council about the status of operations and maintenance and the path forward. Here, I'm going to talk about history of our drainage project. As you can see, the Storm Drainage Improvement Ordinance was adopted in 1983 with no detention requirement. As time progressed, the drainage guideline evolved to add detention requirement, no drainage impact requirement, and minimum detention requirements. The most recent update requires the finished floor elevation of building to be higher between 500-year floodplain elevation or 1 foot above 100-year floodplain elevation, which is consistent with Harris County requirement. On the right side, we can see the evolution of city's community drainage system class, and that's called CRS, and CRS is a voluntary incentive program that recognizes and encourages the community's floodplain management activities. As you can see in the table, in October 2024, the city will be CRS Class 5. So it evolved from Class 8 to Class 5 between 2005 and 2024. This CRS class improvement will make the community eligible for NFIP discount from 20% to 25%. Awesome job by engineering, and I must mention the name Shasha Bakhai, who worked diligently to improve our CRS class. Similarly, the third table shows the history of hazard mitigation plan. Hazard mitigation plan identifies potential hazards, assessment of the risk, and mitigation action to reduce property damages, injuries, and loss of life. The federal government requires it to be updated every 5 years and adopted by the City Council. Adopted HMP is a must for federal grant applications such as GLO or Texas for Development Board or any other grant programs. This was one of the trivia questions at the State of Luncheon. As we can see, the total regional detention volume in the city of Pearland is approximately 4,400 acre-feet. This does not include subdivision detention pond and private detention ponds. It is just regional and cities infrastructure pond. Most of these projects were funded through drainage bonds. As you can see, the drainage bond projects in 2001 and 2007 prioritized regional drainage improvement by installing large detention mitigation ponds, whereas the most recent drainage bond in 2019 and 2023 bond addresses localized drainage issues. Master Drainage Plan and Form Update, Texas Water Development Board has recently awarded FEMA Form Update project to HAF Associates. This will update FEMA form for Clear Creek watershed using MapNext modeling concept, which is similar to what was used by Harris County Flood Control District. based on the latest communication with HAF Associates, the first draft of hydraulic and hydrologic model will be ready by spring of 2025. So we will wait for the HAF Associates to finalize the calibration and validation of HNS model, and then we can start our master drainage plan update. HAF prepared our 2019 MDP and will be updating FEMA form for Texas Development Board. So we are thinking we'll bring them back on board for MDP update in 2025. And for that update, we will have PEDC and BDD4 as partners for that project. And also the city is planning to complete a bridge flood infrastructure fund that's called FIF fund applications for the projects identified in 2019 MDP. We did do that last year, and our project, Mary's Creek Drainage Project, was elevated from flood mitigation evaluation to flood mitigation project last year. So we need to continue to application this year too. So we will add Mary's Creek, Hickory Slough, and Covers Creek in this cycle. So we will submit those applications, and the deadline is April 15. We're planning to do that this year. The city is a member of Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee. The committee meets on a bi-monthly basis in which Harris County Flood Control District provides a status update about various projects that they are involved in within Clear Creek Drainage area. This update is based on February 13, 2024 meeting. The major highlight includes the conditional approval by USAC in November 2023. And another highlight is the community engagement virtual meeting, which is scheduled for March 27, 2024 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So I will be attending that meeting. And as far as the project completion date, it is still 2032. There is no change in the project completion date as of today. Now I will turn it over to our director, Mr. Lorenzo Wingate.
In 2022, approximately 24 preliminary engineering reports were prepared for the engineering and capital improvements team to evaluate potential drainage projects around the city. The recommendations from those PERs were shared to the city's bond committee, made up of community members as well as elected officials, which led to the inclusion of most of those projects within the FY20 or within the 2023 voter approved bond. The grants division also supported project budgets by securing grant funding through the General Land Office via the Community Development Block Grant Program, also known as CDBG funding. Shown here are 14 drainage projects that were included in the 2023 bond election and their scheduled release dates. The release dates were based on project prioritization through a scoring matrix developed by the engineering division and reviewed by the bonding commission. Staff is currently negotiating professional services contracts for all 5 projects scheduled to begin in FY24. And these project scopes will include rehabilitation of existing pavement where asphalt pavement materials are within the project areas. There are 3 drainage projects funded through the General Land Office, or the GLO, in an approximate amount of $2.3 million. These projects noted within the Harvey Drainage Assessment Report will improve conveyance in the area and help reduce flooding. So projects 1 and 2 on this list were originally considered to be included as part of the 2023 bond program. These projects will improve conveyance to mitigate flooding, and the embankment project will repair a failing embankment along Hickory Slough. Staff realized the project's location within the low to moderate income area and was able to secure Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funding, from the General Land Office for design and construction. These projects are combined into a single design effort and are intended to be solicited for construction as a single project. The Hickory Slough Regional Detention Pond was constructed in coordination with BDD4. Once the McCard Road Extension Project receives final acceptance, the remaining pond improvements will be completed. The Hickory Slough Sportsplex Detention Pond Project, which is phase 2 of that detention improvement, will be the final build out for the Hickory Slough Pond and will add 95 acre feet of detention at the Sportsplex and will finish out the build out of the stormwater pump station and include final pumps and a standby generator to power the lift station site in the event of power loss. The project is being designed collaboratively with the Hickory Slough Sportsplex improvements, and both projects are intended to be solicited for construction as one package. And here's a summary of the current CIP schedule for 24 through 28, which was presented to Planning and Zoning and approved by Council on September 11, 2023, for an anticipated 5-year total of $124.5 million. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Eric Hammond, Assistant Director of Public Works, for more detailed updates on drainage operations.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and thank you for an opportunity to expand on our previous operational update and touch on some of the advancements from our drainage program since the last time we spoke last year. As a quick reminder of why drainage maintenance is important and why we provide these services, impacted storm sewers can lead to downstream flooding, property damage, habitat loss, sanitary sewer overflows, contamination, and erosion, just to name a few. Through routine and targeted maintenance activities, coupled with our capital improvement project team, we do believe that we can reduce impacts of flooding within our community. What really got us here to today's drainage program, on March 2nd, 2022, while draining an elevated storage tank at City Hall for maintenance, staff observed large amounts of water ponding around the tank and not draining into our adjacent storm sewer. Upon inspection, staff found a large root obstruction impacting that sewer's ability to perform, and upon removal, the surrounding area performed as designed, reducing the potential for flooding right here in our own backyard. That root remains in our office and serves as a reminder of what can happen should we continue to neglect drainage activities and operate on a solely reactionary-based approach. To highlight the magnitude of the drainage system, we offer this glimpse of the 346 miles of enclosed drainage system that spans our entire community. That length of pipe would stop just short of Abilene, Texas, if we connected it end over end today. Keep in mind that there's an additional 141 miles of open ditch not represented in this image, which typically run parallel to our asphalt streets, and just under 7 miles of hybrid system in our community, that consists of an enclosed system constructed underneath a shallow swell. As well, we have just over 13,500 inlets that collect our stormwater before it's transported to those receiving streams. I'll add that this inventory increases daily as development continues. In addition to the assets we just highlighted, the city does have an additional 110 buyout lots that we acquired due to past flood events and over 300 detention facilities comprised of both private and public ownership. With the dedicated drainage team, our engineering colleagues, and key stakeholders, the city's focused on a 10-year maintenance program, provides grounds maintenance services to 757 acres of drainage or buyout property, and provides all emergency response support activities as it relates to drainage system management. Prior to FY23, we merged our right-of-way and streets and drainage services within a single division. This merge initiated a complete streets approach to right-of-way management, and 33 employees were assigned to provide all facets of maintenance, ranging from street repair, drainage maintenance, sidewalk management, grounds maintenance, utility locates, right-of-way permitting, pavement marking, and hotshot services. However, in total, only 6 of those employees, inclusive of that service supervisor, were assigned to drainage-specific roles. Due to reduced staffing levels, drainage and street maintenance personnel were routinely shared between services to ensure adequate staffing and response. However, in response to a desire to support drainage activities, Council supported a recommendation to increase staffing levels and critical equipment vital in providing these services. The personnel component of that support included the phased onboarding of 7 additional drainage team members, allowing our new staff total of 13, who focus solely on the management of stormwater and stormwater infrastructure. These personnel, coupled with equipment such as Gradall, combination cleaner, and CCTV or closed circuit television truck, paved the way for the city to begin a systematic approach to drainage system management and maintenance. As a result of the program-based approach and desire to advance systematically through the community, staff purpose to inspect, clean, and reestablish flow lines as necessary on a 10-year basis. Year one commenced in Zone A, which is just south of Broadway and west of Main Street. The team is now in Zone B, which mainly encompasses the area south of Magnolia and north of Bailey. Staff intend to continue advancing counterclockwise from this zone throughout the remainder of the community. And as staff advance, we're monitoring for large system impacts that may require capital projects or additional resources to correct, as well as monitoring the team's ability to effectively manage the program as designed. That original timeline shared to meet the 10-year goal was based on an average of 14.5 miles of open ditch and 31 miles of enclosed system maintenance annually. To illustrate a few of the successes associated with the program thus far, the team identified and addressed the following deficiencies. This first is an enclosed storm sewer in the Wood Creek subdivision. This is an age system and a reoccurring location for future CIP discussions. These photos capture a major joint separation near the outfall into Mary's Creek. A significant separation has the ability to impact the flow of water and cause backups that can lead to street and property flooding. Several feet of pipe were replaced and the outfall reconstructed. Due to the major reconstruction activities associated with this repair, this item serves as an example of the city's need to continue leveraging contractual services to supplement in-house activities. Another critical deficiency identified and improved is a detention facility on Magnolia, just west of Main Street. Years of silt buildup and vegetation choked the facility's ability to receive, store, and discharge stormwater. After extensive cleaning, the pilot channels and outfalls are now free and clear of debris, which allow the water to move as designed. Not only did the silt cause maintenance challenges such as grounds maintenance activities or mowing, but it also increased the potential for pests such as mosquitoes within our community. As we touched on briefly, the city leverages contractual services to augment in-house staff capabilities. At an April council meeting, staff intend to renew a drainage maintenance contract with Texas Drainage to support open ditch grading activities and help ensure continued adherence with the 10-year rotation. It is also the intention of staff to present in the coming months an enclosed storm sewer contract with National Works for outsourced cleaning and inspection of the enclosed system. The team recently conducted a pilot project with National Works for contractual cleaning and found the tandem approach to be vital in meeting service level expectations. Contractual services aid in supplementing performance impacts caused by intermittent staffing challenges, weather delays, priority conflicts such as non-program work requests, and resource capabilities. For example, the outsourced services for open ditch cleaning employs a customized cutting head that not only allows for longer reach and linear pulls for ditches that may be at a greater distance from the road, but also allows turf access with this equipment because of the tracks. So it allows them to get just off the roadway where current city equipment is wheeled and we must remain on pavement to conduct our drainage operations. Both of these contracts were forecasted and budgeted for in the division's budget. As we begin to close out, we offer this glimpse of the team's current completion of drainage services within the community. Keep in mind that while we operate from a program-based approach, we concurrently manage work orders that are submitted and at times may be outside of the program zone, but addressed as prioritization requires. To track progress, the team, in conjunction with our GIS department, developed a dashboard that provides a real-time snapshot of improvements as they are completed. This dash is driven from CityWorks, which is the department's work order management system, and as staff close out work orders, the asset status is updated in real time, providing an up-to-date view of activities throughout the community. Since program commencement, the team has inspected or cleaned over 24 miles of enclosed system and 37 miles of open ditches. Based on the original forecast of a 10-year plan, we're beyond the target for open drainage at 127% completion and on track to meet our goal for enclosed system maintenance at 52% completed so far this year. Finally, I'd like to take a moment to share that in the name of ongoing improvements, the team has made a large organizational shift. As Mr. Epperson alluded to several meetings ago, staff intended to make necessary adjustments within the right-of-way division to create capacity for the division superintendent, who has managed all facets of the street, sidewalk, right-of-way, and drainage maintenance activities. That shift has occurred and provided for the development of a standalone drainage division, which is now led by our very own Malcolm Kennedy. Malcolm has served as the drainage supervisor for several years and was the tip of the spear in the drainage program development, as well as its ongoing success. Malcolm is a graduate of Texas A&M University and a certified floodplain manager. Between the team and himself, we're excited for the future of the drainage program. Most recently, the team published a YouTube video available on the city's webpage, updating the community on the drainage maintenance program, and developed a public-facing dashboard available on the city's drainage website to keep the community aware of crew locations and progress. With that, I'll say thank you again and turn it back over to Mr. Epperson.
So that concludes our presentation on the drainage portion of the tonight's schedule. So if there's any questions or comments on the drainage portion, we'd be happy to entertain those at this point.
All right, we'll open up for any questions that someone might have. Jimmy?
So in the drainage package that we put together, I saw the list and everything, and I'm looking forward to those. But in those meetings of the drainage bond committee, you guys had a 2D model that showed if it started raining and kept raining, which areas would flood first. I'm not sure all of us have seen that. I have, but I would love to actually see that again. So I don't know if you guys can email that out or present it to us in some form or fashion. And then my question on that also is, on that 2D model, is there a way to, with the improvements that we're going to make over in the bond package, to adjust that 2D model to show the actual impact that we are making on the drainage of the city?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure which one was discussed during that meeting. I remember one for Longwood area where we did that project, and that was 2D model. But when we did PR, because 2D model just shows the normal flow pattern, it doesn't help us to design the real storm sewer system or culvert, because the 2D model that we discussed is the rainfall pattern. It just, we drop the rain from the top, but we don't model each individual culverts and storm. That can be done, but that is costly project, and we don't recommend doing that for each small project because the cost will be more than what the benefit will be. So the other part that we've done is a 2D model for the entire city of Houston area. That is a different HECRAS model, and that also shows the drainage pattern that I can share with you. And I have to develop a screenshot model for that because the entire model is 16 gigabyte. That's too big. So I should be able to prepare that, just the video part or video part of that model and share with you. But that will just give how drainage flows, but it doesn't depict exactly how the water travels through the ditches and culverts and everything, because when they did it, we modeled it and we haven't cleared each bridge sections or underground structures. Is not modeled there. And that is one of the things that will be done as a part of Master Drainage Plan update. And in that, we are planning to do a swim model, something similar to City of Sugar Land has. I don't know if you have ever checked that. What we can do in their model is the public can put 2 inches of rainfall in 24 hours and what will be the flooding. So it's a different kind of scenario that they analyze, and that is actually a good idea for our securing CRS points, as well as for our for hazard mitigation plan and for emergency management plan, to have that model ready so it's public facing and we can use it during emergencies too. That is going to be part of Master Drainage Plan update. That's our plan to add that there. So we have the decent model, because model needs to be calibrated and validated. So the engineer has to go back to history and put those rainfall events and calibrate the model, whether that model reflects what happened in the past, and calibrate that, what is the range of prediction. And then after certain that kind of analysis, we can use that model for real analysis and preparing FEMA form. That's why I wanted to move that hazard master drainage plan update to next year. And by that time, probably we will have the basis of that model calibrated and validated. Then we can move forward with master drainage plan update.
Yeah, it was the citywide 2D model, and I really enjoyed it. It was helpful in doing the planning, and I didn't know if you guys had already updated it, but I look forward to seeing it, I guess, next year.
We can do that.
Any other questions or comments? Chevrolet?
Thank you so much for the update. I apologize, but on page, I think it's deck 25, and this is just more for informational for me. What is HEO? And I apologize if it's footnoted somewhere else, but I just want to know what does that represent?
Excellent catch, member. We should have put a footnote on there. HEO stands for Heavy Equipment Operator.
Okay, thank you.
That it? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mayor. Eric, as far as our new program that we have with our equipment and our folks, when we set this out, it was a 10-year program where each section was going to be done a year at a time. As far as the beginning stages, how's it looking? Are we going to be able to continue with a 10-year plan? Does that look like it's on target as far as that goes?
Yes, sir. We do believe that in-house services coupled with those vital contractual services are going to continue to help us meet that 10-year commitment. We do continue to evaluate, and we're going to leverage the information, and should we feel like we're either advancing ahead of schedule, we'll definitely bring it to council's attention. Similarly, if we feel like we're getting behind in some cases and need to ramp up, whether that be internal resources or additional contractual resources, we'll be back in here having a conversation. So in 10 years from now, it's not a surprise.
Okay. And when you're talking about contractual services, that's predominantly the maintenance where you have to do the repair work, not the actual going out and identifying the problems.
Correct, sir. In some cases, we do need to leverage the contractual cleaning, as we indicated, for our open ditch contractor. They do have the capability, means, and methods to just get into places that we currently cannot. And so we do need to leverage that tandem approach right now. But again, after we make it through the first 10 years, we believe we'll have either the equipment we need in place, or we'll have the contracts identified very clearly to what we need to leverage each year, year over year.
Okay. Yeah, I was more concerned with what we are, responsible for as far as the identification and figuring out what's right or wrong. So we're good there right now.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
I think just to add on to that, one of the key things, is to continue to monitor it. While we are making good progress now, each zone, as we move through the different zones, have a different characteristic. We've been in heavy open ditch zones, and we'll in the future be in heavy underground storm sewer zones. And so we'll have to, we'll see some of those kind of ebb and flow as we go through it, but everything looks good right now for meeting that 10-year plan.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I understand.
Yes,
I was just wanting to make sure it still looks like what we talked about.
Thank you, Mayor. First thing, Member Chavarria, I learned what HEO was the other day because I called and gave a compliment on one of our heavy equipment operators who was just a really phenomenal person. And I love seeing when our city staff are out and just being really good representatives and ambassadors of the city. So I felt very knowledgeable just now. I was like, yeah, I know what that is. My question was kind of also a public edification question, is on the CRS and its relation to the insurance rates. I think if someone were to look at that and say, oh, I get to save money on my insurance, what does that really mean? What can you give a little bit clearer explanation of that relationship between that number and?
Oh, sure. First, this insurance discount is applicable to only CRS community. So the city of Pearland is a CRS community because we voluntarily participated in that program, and we said that we are going to do these kind of activities to improve our drainage in this area. So if you go to Brazoria County, they are not CRS communities, so that discount is not applicable to the people who residents who lives in Brazoria County side outside of City of Pearland. But City of Pearland, we continuously improved our infrastructure. We continuously show that we are ready to work on it. We have CIP projects. All those projects identified helps us to get more credits. So there are various different parameters and techniques and the reasonings why we get those points. So it starts from public information. We have to send letters to the residents who live in 100 floodplain. We need to notify them, and we have to do different kind of things and approaches to get those scores. So based on that, also these our FEMA flood map, our GIS layers, all those are somehow credited to get additional scores. And this is applicable to only only flood insurance holders who has NFIP insurance. It is not available for private insurance, because in the past only FEMA provided flood insurance. Private insurance was not there. These days, residents can buy private flood insurance too, but this discount is not applicable or applied to the private insurer.
Got it. Okay, that's what I was asking. If you were looking at it from a perspective of a homeowner buying a policy, so it would be the national plans, the national flood insurance plans, and it's not necessarily saying that they're going to see that discount per se kind of year over year, but rather it's applied to, I guess, whatever the baseline is. And so there still could be a rate increase, but it's offset because of the work that we're doing.
Yes, because we will be class 5 in October. Effective that time, our discount will be 25% for the policyholders.
Okay.
And with the class 5, now our re-verification visit goes from 5 years to 3 years. So the federal people will come to visit us more frequent than in the past. So we have to work harder to make sure that everything that we said and we committed are online, and we're doing that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor.
Go to slide 9 real quick in the presentation, the history of some of the mitigation projects. I'm glad you included this because a lot of folks don't understand the evolution of drainage, in our community and how many years it takes to get certain projects conceptualized and then out to vote on with the public and then ultimately to get built. But they also don't realize that we can't come in and necessarily do some of the real small local projects if the water doesn't have any place to go. So we are now getting into more of the localized projects as a part of the 23 bond program because of these projects that have been done over decades. And so and the Clear Creek project, which is was mentioned in this presentation as well, just helps us that much more for capacity and moving water out of here rather than continue to pond in the neighborhoods and whatnot. So I'm glad you included this because again it takes a while to get to where we are now. So I appreciate that. I do appreciate the update on the drainage crew. Thank you for that. And as always, Eric, if there's a hiccup in that, I think we need to know sooner rather than later. I'd be interested to know, especially in the storm pipe, really what you're finding, because that's an area in our community that you can't see. We know it's there. It's hidden. We hope it works, but we don't know until bad things happen, right? So I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to catalog what all they see, what all they experience, because that's the reason we're doing it.
Yes, sir, Mayor. We are working to collect that information, and very soon it'll be visible on our internal dashboard, where we have all of the data saved that shows all the conflicts and the issues or the obstacles that we've overcome, just so that way we can kind of navigate through those or prevent them maybe in the future. But we are working on collecting those now, especially through the use of our CCTV equipment.
Perfect. I see that as a future talk of the town subject, where we educate the public on here's the program that we stood up, here's now what we're seeing, here's some of the data that we're collecting, here's what we're seeing in that storm pipe and the reason we're doing it. So when the storm comes, we're now ready for it in those areas. So thank you for that. Any other questions on drainage before we move on? Looking good. Staff, we'll turn it back over to you.
Right back over to Mr. Wingate.
All right, switching from drainage to transportation, we'll discuss various transportation projects, provide operations and maintenance updates from the traffic division, as well as discuss conditions of the city's streets and sidewalks. The 5-year summary for the 24 to 28 CIP is projected to be more than $118 million. Staff continues to work with other agencies such as HGAC or Houston Galveston Area Council to secure supplemental funding for future streets and trail projects. The TERS, or Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, is also another source of funding for some of our projects. The transportation projects currently in design are streets within the Sherwood subdivision, which will replace all drainage and streets within the neighborhood, intersection improvements at Broadway and Pearland Parkway, providing an additional southbound right turn lane and an additional northbound left and right turn lane. And 2 additional studies are being run with coordination with HGAC. The intersection improvement projects in Shadow Creek Ranch are intended to provide traffic circulation or improve traffic circulation on Business Center Drive, FM 2234, and Broadway west of 288. 2 major projects that were completed in 2023 include the Shadow Creek Ranch sidewalk extensions and the extension of McCard Road from Makawa to Cullen. McCard Road opening in April of 2023 provides another east-west corridor intended to lessen the traffic volumes on FM 518. The McCard Road project was awarded funding through TxDOT's Local Government Procurement Projects Qualifications Program, also known as LGPP, which offers an 80-20 cost share split with TxDOT paying 80 and the city paying 20. The McCard Road extension is also going to be more important in the coming years as TxDOT progresses with the FM 518 expansion project. The west section of FM 518 expansion, which is Old Chocolate Bayou to 288, is projected to begin construction in 2025. The Safe Routes to School project is a federally funded project and provides safe access to local elementary schools. The Bailey Road expansion is a 2019 bond project, which is currently in construction, will provide 2 dedicated eastbound travel lanes between Highway 35 and Veterans. The project is expected to be completed by April 6th of 2026, or about 861 calendar days. Several traffic signal upgrade projects are being managed by a traffic division that are currently ongoing to replace outdated equipment, including cabinets, detection systems, pan and tilt cameras along Magnolia, and 29 other intersections. And the city submitted $325 million worth of projects in the 2022 call for projects through HGAC, which is still pending HGAC's review. As shown on this map, the projects focus primarily on the north-south corridors. In our past submissions, we've primarily focused on the east-west corridors, but with McCard Road opening and Bailey on its way to full build-out, the focus is shifted to better accommodating north and south traffic throughout the city. Projects that did not receive HGAC funding will be candidates for future bond programs. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Yossi Ramirez, the city's traffic engineer, to provide a traffic operations update.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cole and council members. The City of Pearland Traffic Operations oversees the city's transportation system, which includes traffic signals, school zones, communication system components, city facilities, and other elements of the city's infrastructures. The daily maintenance of traffic operations includes troubleshooting several internal components in the traffic signal cabinets, field hardware, and school zone flashers, as well as repairing damaged streetlights and converting them to LED fixtures. We recently inherited the daily maintenance of street signs, which includes installing and repairing signs along the city streets. In addition to our daily maintenance, we have several internal projects. Short-term projects include upgrading the school zone flashers program to new timers, which we can now program from our traffic management center. Another short-term project is the Opticon emergency vehicle preemption, which has allowed us to decrease response times and improve safety for emergency responders. 41 fire vehicles are now outfitted with Opticon equipment, and we are looking to add 15 police vehicles by the end of April as a trial for police. 82 intersections are connected to the preemption system, and the remaining 28 intersections are waiting for fiber connectivity. For meter projects, includes installing flashing yellow arrows at several intersections, overseeing the review of 5 span wire intersections, and removing and replacing outdated traffic signal equipment such as traffic signal cabinets and detection systems. In the long-term projects, we are starting phase 1 of the Intelligent Transportation System Operations Management Study, which will allow us to allocate the staffing and equipment needed to manage and maintaining the city's infrastructure. We also have 3 projects in partnership with the city, with the Houston-Galveston Area Council. As you can see, we have the Pearland Transit Need Assessment Plan, the Pearland Mobility Study, and the FM 518 Corridor Study. The Pearland Transit Needs Assessment Plan is 100% funded by the HGAC. The study aims to determine and assess the needs for public transportation or transit in the Pearland community and to provide recommendations for what types of transit services, if any, may be appropriate for the community to consider in the future. Phase 2 of the public meetings occur from March 19 to the 21st, and the final report is near completion. It is expected in late spring 2024. The Pearland Mobility Study and the FM 518 Corridor Studies are 90% funded by the HGAC and 10% from the city. The Pearland Mobility Study is a 12-month study that will result in a mobility plan that includes an action plan, a traffic management plan, and an update to the Pearland Thoroughfare Plan. The study will also investigate safety, connectivity, network efficiency, and the integration of multimodal facilities. The FM 518 Corridor Study is an 18-month study evaluating the FM 518 corridor from McLean Road to Edgewood Drive. The study will evaluate a one-way pair analysis at FM 518 at McLean and Walnut, providing a one-way direction on FM 518 and Walnut. This analysis will be needed for the Old Town study. Both studies will include short, medium, and long-term recommendations, and such recommendations could include road expansions or intersection improvements that will assist in developing capital improvement projects. The first public meeting for both studies will take place on April 6th as part of the Spring Fest. The Traffic Division inherited the maintenance of street signs and added 3 staff members in October of last year. The Traffic Division now consists of 8 employees. 3 are responsible for maintaining 110 traffic signals and 3 responsible for all signage on city-owned streets. With a projected increase in infrastructure, sign maintenance, and fiber connectivity within our signals, we project the need for additional staff members in a couple of years, which will be based on our Intelligent Transportation System Operation Management Study. The Traffic Division also manages the Traffic Calming Committee, which involves city staff from the Engineering and Public Works Department, Police Department, Fire Department, and a consultant professional traffic engineer. The traffic policy can be found in Ordinance Number 1301-1 and is based on the Texas Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or TMUTCD. The meetings are held monthly, and the typical requests we get are cut-through traffic, speeding, requests for stop signs, speed bumps, and signal warrants. The complete analysis for these requests are about 45 days, depending on the type of request. And one frequent request is to lower the speed limit on residential streets. According to the state law, the speed limit on residential streets is 30 miles per hour, whether a sign is posted or not. The city does not lower the speed limit on individual residential streets. Instead, we maintain and consist residential speed limits across the city that is in line with state law. The Traffic Calming Committee addresses requests on a case-by-case basis, which is how traffic issues have historically been addressed in this area. However, the Traffic Calming Committee can recommend a study based on the number of requests, the frequency, and the concentration of the traffic issue in the area if it's higher than the others. The Traffic Calming Committee has recommended several studies in the past year, including the traffic condition assessment on Hughes Road, Riverstone Falls, and Alexander Ridge. Also, the traffic signal installation of Dixie Farm at Toll Oak Drive, Hastings Drive Road, and the Sleepy Hollow cut-through traffic evaluation study. Depending on the recommendations and the funding available, the studies may become short-term, mid-term, or long-term studies for the department. The Traffic Division has accomplished the oversight of the review of 2 span wire intersections, provided first response to emergency weather situations, deployed new traffic radar counters for traffic calming committees requests at various locations, completed preventive maintenance at 6 intersections, making the necessary repairs at the intersections, also closed 484 work orders for signal and sign repairs for streetlights along SH35 and along Colin Parkway, and has completed the installation of new school zone flashers equipment. I will return the presentation to Lorenzo Wigway for the next segment of our streets update.
Thank you, Yossi. In 2014, the Infrastructure Management Services, or IMS, evaluated the city's roadway network and provided a condition assessment on all of the city's asphalt and concrete streets. IMS reassessed the city's roadway network in 2023, and Dr. Sadaf Khazravafar from IMS is here to discuss the 2023 condition assessment.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Good afternoon, Mayor Cole and council members. IMS has had the pleasure to collaborate with Pearland on several roadway condition assessment projects since 2014. And today I'll be providing a brief overview of our observations regarding network level pavement conditions in Pearland. As outlined in the agenda, I'll begin by explaining the pavement management process and the methodology that we followed for pavement condition surveys. Then I'll showcase example photos of pavements in various conditions. Then I'll get into the results, presenting our findings regarding the current state of the network. And in addition to pavement data, we also collected other assets, so I'll conclude by providing an overview of those assets that were collected. Pavement management is an iterative process that allows for a data-driven maintenance of roadway assets. Through this process, we start with reviewing the city's current objectives, goals, policies, and budget. Then we follow by a thorough assessment of pavement conditions to determine the current conditions. Then we utilize this data to forecast future conditions and develop a maintenance and rehabilitation plan. Finally, the city conducts the planned project, and this cycle repeats. The major goal with having a system in place is to have that feedback loop where we can always use data to update our objectives, policies, and budgets. All right. So next step is how we conducted the survey. On the right side, you see a picture of the road surface tester that was deployed for this project. It is equipped with 3D laser cameras, and it allows for a safe, efficient, accurate, and repeatable way of collecting pavement condition data. Through this process, we identify and classify different distresses as shown on the left, such as alligator cracking, rutting, longitudinal transverse cracking, block cracking, and so forth. And in addition to distresses, we also capture the profile of the road. We use that information to determine the ride quality, or how bumpy the road is, or whether you're gonna spill your coffee or not. We follow a semi-automated process where we first analyze images using image processing and AI, followed by a manual review of the process of the data. Here are a few examples of the 3D images that we get from the van. As you can see, all these images are shadow-free, and you can see open cracks, sealed cracks, concrete joints. You can detect any man-made object like the manhole covers and all of that information. And then after we identify all of these cracks, we manually review them, and then we classify them into different distress categories. Then we follow industry standards, specifically ASTM D6433 standard. This is a widely used standard to analyze the data. We analyze distress types, severities, and quantities to determine a score. We call it Surface Distress Index. And this SDI, or Surface Distress Index, is a score from 0 to 100, and it allows us to have an idea of the surface distress conditions. Then similarly, we analyze that road longitudinal profile of the road following ASTM E1926, and that allows us to determine another index called International Roughness Index, and that allows us to come up with a measure of ride quality. Then we combine and aggregate those two indices into one combo index. We call it PCI, or the Pavement Condition Index. This PCI value provides an indication of the surface condition and the structural integrity of the pavement, and we can further divide up that 0 to 100 score to various categories, using descriptive terms such as very poor, poor, marginal, fair, good, very good, and excellent category. When pavements are at PCI of 40 or below, they're considered poor or very poor, and they have already lost their window of opportunity for any maintenance and rehabilitation. Those are the ones that you get most of the complaints, but unfortunately they have already also lost that window of opportunity for any mill and overlay project or preventive maintenance work. So now I'll be presenting some images just showcasing the city streets that fall into these various categories. The first example I have is a picture of Broadway Bend. This pavement is in very good condition with a PCI of 75. The only distresses that were on this pavement were minor scaling or fine cracks. Pretty much those are hairline cracks that only extend through the upper surface of the concrete, so you just need to do routine maintenance on a pavement like this. Next, I have a segment of Mikawa Road in good condition. The predominant distress in this segment is linear cracks. These cracks divide the slab into 2 or 3 pieces, and it's usually caused by a combination of repeated traffic or temperature changes in the pavement through day and night and different seasons. Next example is from Spectrum Boulevard, from Riley Road to Hooper Road. This is in marginal category. The predominant distress is longitudinal and transverse cracking, alligator cracking. It has some rotting also under the wheel path, permanent deformation under the wheel path. This pavement is at the end of its opportunity for a mill and overlay project. So if we delay or defer this pavement any longer, then it becomes a reconstruction need. Next, I have an example of what happens if you defer that maintenance. This segment is on South Texas Avenue from West Walnut Street to West Pierce Street. It is in poor condition with a PCI of 35. There are just so many different type of distresses on this pavement. It's already past its window of opportunity for anything. You basically need to dig out and do a full reconstruction on this pavement. So now that we've looked at several examples of pavements in different conditions, let's dive into the current state of pavements in Pearland. So Pearland is a mid-sized city with a population of about 126,000 and about 449 centerline miles of roads. At the time of the survey, which was done in July of 2023, the average PCI was 74, with about 3.6% of the pavements in poor or very poor condition, that backlog category that I'm talking about. This is a very good average PCI. When we look at it and compare it to national averages for your reference, among our clients, the average is about 63 nationally and about 68 in Texas. But when we compare Pearland to Pearland back in 2014, we can see a decline. So back in 2014, the average PCI in Pearland was a 76. So now we are seeing 2 points decline in the average conditions. Next slide. Yes, so here I am looking now at the distribution of pavement conditions into 2 different categories, the concrete and the asphalt network. As you can see in the graph, the concrete network, which is shown in the blue bar chart, is in a much better condition. The average PCI is 76. there is very, very few pavements in poor or very poor pavements. Only less than 1% of the network is in that condition. And Pearland is majority concrete. Over 80% of the roadway surfaces are concrete. And this is a very good thing. But when we look at the asphalt network condition, we see that it's in a poorer condition with an average PCI of 59. And this one, we also see that the average condition on the asphalt pavement have dropped 7 points from the previous survey that was done in 2014. All right, as mentioned earlier, with the van, we also captured...
Before you go on, I'm sorry, can you go back to the last slide? Was this the same exact, you said you compared 2014 and 2023. Did you drive the exact same roads?
There could be minor differences because, the network could grow. So basically, we drove your entire network in 2014 and your entire network in 2023. I would imagine the network in 2023 could be
bigger,
yeah. But on average, when we look at the average conditions,
yeah. I guess my question is, I see that you're saying that we dropped 2 basis points, but at the same time, I mean, I guess the population was maybe less than 100,000, right? You're talking about 10 years ago. So I guess that's asterisk that I would put it somewhere, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are many things that happen, but the population grows, the network of the road grows, and the pavements also deteriorate. So that's why it's, in order to balance it out, I think with a larger network, we also need to make sure we have that level of maintenance to catch up with that overall size of the network. But yeah, overall, when we compare Pearland to other cities, it's in a great condition, but yeah, the best competition is always with yourself. So that's why I brought over the comparison with 2014. Right. Yes, so with the van, we also captured 360 images with a ladybug camera. This allowed us to extract information regarding the location and key features of various right-of-way assets. The assets that we extracted included signs and supports, sidewalks, the obstructions on the sidewalks, and the ramps, as well as pavement markings and stripings. This approach offered a broad overview of the current state of assets within the city, and it basically laid the groundwork for a more comprehensive program should the council decide to pursue it. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'll now hand the presentation back to Eric.
Thank you, Sadaf, and thank you again, Mayor and Council, for an opportunity to expand a bit on our transportation network. Quickly, the image before you captures the current network for both streets and sidewalks, and there are 980 lane miles of roadway with, as Sadaf alluded to, 82% of those being concrete construction and the balance of 18% being asphalt construction. Additionally, there are 617 miles of sidewalk that fall within the city's maintenance program. Currently, there are 9 team members assigned and budgeted to maintain this entire street and sidewalk network, one of which is a dedicated supervisor who manages daily operations. 3 team members are dedicated to the 617 miles of sidewalk, and the remaining 5 team members are dedicated to maintaining the 980 miles of roadway. What does our infrastructure growth look like over the years? Before you is a slide that you have seen before, but we share this to recall the community's infrastructure growth since 2006. The orange column illustrates the city's miles of roadway, which have grown by 70% since 2006, while the gray columns illustrate the sidewalk growth during that same time period, and sidewalk infrastructure as well has increased by 70%. Blue columns, however, indicate budgeted staffing since 2006, which you see here has remained static. While we may have remained static in staffing over the last several years, it was important to understand how we operationally compared to some of our neighboring communities. This graph captures the total network in lane miles, broken down by concrete and asphalt for communities such as Sugar Land, Rosenberg, Baytown, Missouri City, and League City. You'll note that not only does Pearland have the second largest network, but it also has the largest volume of asphalt streets still within its inventory. Now, without a national standard of staff to infrastructure ratio, we wanted to better understand the current ratio when compared to these other communities, specifically to the maintenance of roadways. Recall that not only did Pearland have the second largest inventory of roadway infrastructure, and while we may have 9 total team members to manage all facets of those streets and sidewalk maintenance, for the sake of this slide, we're only comparing those team members solely dedicated to roadway maintenance. Sugar Land is the closest in total infrastructure with 17 dedicated team members to maintain their streets. Baytown, on the other hand, has less than 400 miles of roadway with over 40 team members to maintain. It's important to note that several of these communities provide broader services ranging from street panel replacement, preventative maintenance to for asphalt and localized reconstruction activities. And again, while we have not identified a national average, we hope to paint a picture of what a commuter may see or feel. As Sadaf said, can you hold your coffee in your cup as you travel while going through some of these neighboring community streets, and the human investment it took for those communities to reach those service levels. Based on the 2023 survey, Infrastructure Management System suggested a budget of $5.97 million annually is necessary over the next 5 years to maintain a steady state PCI of 74 or 75 based on infrastructure and industry construction activity pricing. Deviation from this estimated annual budget is forecasted to impact our PCI over the next 5 years. Before we touch on a few potential budget-based work plans, we offer this slide as a reminder of planned work and general locations that we do currently have in the queue budgeted for repairs. This image captures those areas discussed as being improved previously by the threefold court approach. Again, that was in-house activities, partnership activities such as interlocal with Brazoria County, as well as through the efforts of our capital improvement program. Recall that these areas are also programmed for restoration through FY28, and although timing is not indicated on the image, there are 11.76 miles scheduled for construction in FY24, just under 16 miles scheduled for construction in 25, and in total 40 miles planned through FY28. This will remain, or it remains, our initial plan forward, but should additional budget dollars be made available, we offer the following slides for increased improvements. Moving forward, and now armed with pavement condition data, staff can develop maintenance plans based on available budget dollars. For example, we have historically averaged an annual operations budget of $1.1 million. If that budget remains, and based on the data-driven approach, IMS identifies the following areas to be improved within that budget amount. This budget would improve an additional 3 miles of roadway within our community and be scaled as budget dollars allow. Unfortunately, reoccurring funding at this level is forecasted to deteriorate our overall PCI to a score of 69 in the next 5 years is the forecast. Should additional budget dollars be available, such as a little over $3 million, the community could realize an estimated 8.5 miles of additional improvement. All roads planned in this data-driven approach are asphalt streets, but again, this budget falls below the recommended steady-state budget and is forecasted to result in a decline to our PCI to 71 over the next 5 years if this was a target budget for 5 years. And finally, if the recommended $5.97 million was infused into the maintenance program, the community could realize just under 15 miles of additional roadway improvements in 2024. This funding level begins to incorporate a mix of concrete and asphalt improvements and is the target amount recommended by IMS annually over the next 5 years to maintain that steady state PCI. For some clarity on the roads listed in each budget option and the corresponding limits, this slide depicts those locations that could be improved based on additional funding in FY24, Please note that this is a comprehensive list, this is not, rather, a comprehensive list. As you may have noted in the previous slides, that there are multiple short segments planned for improvement based on the data-driven approach. Because those segments could range from 50 to 500 feet in length, we offer this image for a high-level view of the major areas that could be improved. As previously mentioned, the 2014 IMS data indicated that an average of $4 million should be invested into the pavement network annually for the following 5 years to maintain the steady state PCI at that time. This table illustrates the annual budget provided for street maintenance for the previous 4 years. As you can see, competing priorities have impacted the available budget dollars and subsequent work. Regarding asphalt street impact alone, the 2013 survey indicated an overall asphalt PCI of 66, which has deteriorated by 11% due to deferred maintenance in the past 10 years. Should this trend continue, we can expect further decline reaching the bottom of the fair category or below by the next survey. One additional improvement the team has developed is a program-based approach to pothole maintenance to mirror the success of several other operational programs. Moving forward, staff intend to work within one of 5 dedicated zones and rotate daily. This will allow staff to systematically address issues in a specific location of the community and reduce travel time between project sites. To drive activities with these zones, staff have developed a pothole priority matrix that determines the severity and risk associated with each pothole, as well as the need to mitigate. This plan allows staff to now share, it's our intent, to address issues based on a priority approach within approximately 10 business days for isolated issues. Although there are several requests in the queue, it's believed that with refinement of this plan and policy over the coming months, program-based approach will allow for swifter resolution and improved communication with our residents. To be clear on the capacity and services we currently provide compared to the best management practices, with the current 5-member team, our current level of service is centered around pothole filling and localized asphalt level ups to address slightly larger depressions. This pales in comparison to the best management practices for pavement management, which rely on an extensive list of services intended to prolong the public investment and usability of our roadways. These services on the left of the slide only provided on a reactionary basis via contractual, interlocal agreement, or capital service, and as funding allows. As we close out, we'd like to note the intent for aligning the streets team staffing with the provision of those best management services. As shared, we intend to continue leveraging contractual services as necessary, but in addition to funding, additional human capital is necessary. The team has developed a 4-year plan for right-sizing the team, with year 1 intending to recommend 5 additional utility maintenance workers who will allow the creation of a hotshot asphalt street maintenance team. This crew will report to an existing crew leader and allow for a rapid deployment pothole patching service, routine crack sealing service, and curb repairs. This team would be expanded upon in FY26 with an intent to fund a concrete repair crew, which at current there are no dedicated services and minimal contract dollars, although over 80% of our network is concrete infrastructure. Moving into FY27, the team would again recommend to expand into a second asphalt crew to allow division of our community into 2 separate districts, before concluding in FY28 with a second concrete crew, allowing the division of our community into similar districts as well for our concrete services. One important note is that by FY28 and near the conclusion of our sidewalk bond program, after some additional monitoring, staff may be able to leverage the recommended concrete crews and equipment to take on in-house sidewalk maintenance activities. With that, we look forward to mirroring the success of our drainage program, as well as council support where possible in the coming budget year. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Josh Lee to touch on our communication plan moving forward.
So as far as communications of streets repair, maintenance specifically, we're going to follow a similar approach to what we did with the drainage maintenance crew, where we've seen a lot of success in being able to elevate the base level of education of what it is that we're doing, the process, the expectations for the residents, how to report things, and who the team members are specifically. We'll also use our owned assets like our website and our social media platforms to inform residents in the exact same way we've done with the drainage maintenance crew, to show what it is that we're doing, where we're going to be, where we're going, and have all of the evergreen information in one central location. And then we already have existing platforms to alert residents. So if there are significant impacts from street works that cause traffic delays or prolonged closures, we have a group through our Everbridge platform where we do push notifications. And then we also put those on the Pearland Police Department's Twitter account. So we have multiple locations where residents will have access to significant traffic alert information, and then we'll drive back to the website and to our social media platforms for educational and informational content.
So similar to the approach that we use for pavement maintenance, we are wanting to leverage or intending to leverage the data to maintain the city's sidewalk network. With the assistance of the GIS division, the EPW team will utilize a dashboard to evaluate sidewalk service requests, prioritize work orders, and deploy resources accordingly. Here's another representation of how we're using a data-driven approach for infrastructure maintenance. This dashboard, using the data that we collected while we were doing the pavement index, gives us the ability to review sidewalk work orders throughout the city, overlaid onto the sidewalk inventory to show existing sidewalks and where we have gaps. We're going to leverage that data to develop, a data-driven approach to execute this sidewalk maintenance and gap program in the future. So as part of the latest bond approval, there's a 4-year allocation of $15 million to address sidewalks and sidewalk gaps. The approved FY24 capital improvement program budget includes $2 million to rehabilitate old and construct new sidewalks. To initiate the program, we intend to mimic the contract currently utilized by the Streets Division to address outstanding work orders and service requests, as well as mitigate gaps adjacent to work areas. To help facilitate the program, we anticipate procuring outside services for day-to-day construction management and inspections. For future work plans, our future work plans will be developed in subsequent years based on similar criteria. This completes our presentation for the streets portion as well as our CIP update. And Trent, I'll turn it back to you for any questions that we may get.
Ready for questions, Mayor.
All right, back to council for questions, comments that you might have. Mr. Patel?
Can you go back to slide 127, please? So I guess what's so concerning to me when I see these red dots, it's all on the west side in Shadow Creek Ranch and Southern Trails. And I'll tell you from personal experience, I replaced part of my sidewalk in front of my house when I was redoing my driveway. And the sidewalks had no rebar underneath them when they literally just pulled it up. And I guess what's so concerning is, what are we doing to address that when developers come in here and they're getting ready to pour? Are we not inspecting that the sidewalks have rebar and the quality of the work they're doing? Because, I mean, some of this area is less than 10 years old where I see these red dots.
Yeah, so part of that development process, we do have inspectors that are out in the field that's inspecting construction. We have our standard details that we follow and we adhere to, and we'll continue to monitor that.
I think along the lines of where your concerns are, there was a period of time where development was moving very, very rapidly, and as far as what we were doing for inspections and were we able to sit there and watch them pour every sidewalk, probably not. Today, at the pace of development and probably for the better part of the last decade, we haven't seen it move that fast. So we've done a much better job, I would say, being able to see most of what goes in the ground.
Darren, is there a way we can go back to these developers if they're not meeting our standards? I mean, I would assume rebar was part of the sidewalk.
I will also say this, generally speaking, the sidewalk in front of the house was probably installed by your builder. Right. So not the developer of the subdivision, but the builder.
Sorry, the builder. Is there a way we could go after them? I mean, would there be not a rule in that they had to follow? Like rebar was part of, I mean, I guess.
Yes, there are standard details they were required to follow. If they haven't, I'd maybe go to Darren.
Yeah, I would say at this time, the warranty will have far passed. And if they weren't built to standard, and then at this time, it's going to be tough to go back, 15 years later after a contractor?
Yeah, I just want to point out that when we accept all those infrastructure, we make sure that we get 2-year maintenance bond. And after 2 years, we release that maintenance bond back to the developer. So after that, I think we cannot go back to the developer. That's my interpretation, and probably Darren can explain more about that.
Yeah, so the standard is just like in framing. Sidewalk is no different. It's got a frame, right? It's got a rebar. It's got everything that's laid. So typically what's supposed to happen is when that's laid down, then there's an inspection, and then concrete is poured. So there's an inspection before the concrete is poured, and then obviously there's an inspection after the concrete is done. I think Trent's answer is probably very accurate. It's not the best answer in the world, but it's probably the truth, and that is, I think in 2006 you had 2,600 single-family building permits going on. At that time, you probably had you probably had some missing inspections along the way. I know at one point I pushed to hire additional inspectors simply because of that issue. We had inspectors that there was no way they could keep up with the number of inspections on a daily basis. I mean, we were getting reports, our guys were literally having to do a drive-by, going in, taking a look, and going just by the sheer volume that was going on. It's the reason why we hired outside inspectors for the town center. That way they were dedicated strictly for the town center and weren't taken away from the rest of the city and the single-family building that was going on. But hopefully that answered your question a little bit more. But you're right. There's going to be sections in our area, in our city that were probably missed.
And I will point out, and while there are some situations like that, there's a multitude of reasons why sidewalks fail. Their adjacency to trees. Is there, some underlying cause from a utility, or is it what's the age of it? What was the standard when it was built many years ago? Wire mesh was the standard a long time ago, and things weren't tied in to adjacent pavement and stuff like that, like we require today at one point. So there's the multitude of reasons that you can see them fail, and then just because of age. But we do, when we go back in and reconstruct these, we are inspecting our contractor to ensure that they are building those to our current standards, and that we do get the life out of those as expected.
Ms. Chavarit?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the update. So I may be reaching, but I have a question regarding the bond. So does the bond currently include any additional staffing, for example, for streets and sidewalk? Are we able to use those funds for that? And then secondly, when do we actually sell the bonds to fund the projects?
So it does not include any additional personnel for this type of project. We do fund our capital improvement group out of the CIP. So there may be a portion of this that we do manage out of that group. So we would be able to add people to kind of manage contracts and manage contractors. We wouldn't add operational personnel with those funds. And then when do we sell bonds? So annually, we sell bonds annually. So in the spring, actually coming up here very soon, we'll be evaluating where we are on all of our projects. Have they progressed as fast as expected? Have they slowed down? Has anything accelerated? And we look at what was planned for in the budget And do we need all of that to be sold this year? And then we adjust to what the actual need is. It usually comes down. There are minor, one or two projects may need a little additional funding, but most projects, we're able to push back some of that bond sale just based on when we're going to construction, and just the progress of the project. So what we do is we develop that information, we provide it to the city council. It says, here's what was in the CIP, here's what's planned for the bond sale and the delta and the reasons behind that. And then we bring that, Rachel, we bring the bond sale this year, what month? So late May or June, we'll do our bond sale for this fiscal year. And so that's about the time we do it every year.
If you go back to the picture, the slide before this one. One more. What are those blue dots?
Member Cade, the blue dots on this image capture the location of a curb repair site. And so I apologize for convoluting the topic here, but those are specific to curb repairs.
Thank you. I was just very curious. I appreciate it.
Eric, while this slide is up, if like an entire subdivision looks like Westwood Village off of Veterans, down there is a whole red block. Is that meaning the entire subdivision is in need, or is? So,
Mayor, to support the bond project or program, the team went out and provided proactive surveys. So we, in addition to where you see the scattered data points, those are typically generated by the public or by staff as they're combing through the community. But specifically, there were 3 targeted areas that we did go and proactively inspect, just because we knew that, to Mr. Epperson's point, we do have a large urban canopy with old growth trees. We knew that the infrastructure was aged and that development had been there, and so we wanted to target those and understand holistically what the subdivision would look like. But if we were to zoom in, you would see the individual points at each one of the failures and each of the measurements that the team calculated.
Yeah, just that slide was up. I wanted to ask that question. Open up for.
And also, to Member Patel's point, he said there's a big part of West, that West looks worse. There's a large part of the east side of the city you can't see on this map. So there may be bad parts over there that aren't showing.
Member Cade, you're correct, ma'am. We have this dashboard, happy to share it out as necessary. But we also, staff, also conducted a proactive inspection in Dixie Woods. Dixie Woods had a similar situation, and so we want to understand the magnitude. That helps the good people in our CIP program determine if we need to continue with the localized spot repairs at, let's just say, 100 different locations in one subdivision, or if it's more appropriate to go ahead and remove and replace the entire sidewalk in that subdivision.
Thank you.
Mr. Carbone?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. If you go all the way back to slide 48, the traffic calming, and I sent Mr. Epperson an email earlier, the Sleepy Hollow cut through. I know that's bad right now. In terms of doing the study, we've still got Dixie Farm and 518 under construction, and now you've got the bridge out and Green Tea. So I guess when I saw this and the timing of it, it made me scratch my head a little bit. Say, hey, are we going to get accurate results for that cut through traffic?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we have some data that we took before the Dixie Farm and the bridge closure. However, yes, you're right. There's some cut through traffic that is happening due to those 2 projects. So we're trying to see if we can see the data of what we take right now and compare it to what we have previously from the not having those 2 projects happening, so we can gauge how much it will be.
And the intersection at Dixie Farm and 518, we're just lacking some traffic signal heads that have to be installed. I don't have a date on what the schedule is for that, but that's all that intersection lacks. So I think we can hopefully have that up and running fairly soon, and then proceed with it, because if we wait until the bridge project's over, we'll be waiting, at least 9 months, maybe longer. And I think we need to evaluate this. And this is probably less affected by that than some other areas. Do we have a projected time on those traffic signal heads?
No, not at this time.
Was that on our side or was that on the contractor side? Because that project's gone
Way
a year.
Yeah, it's way beyond schedule, but it's really the contractor has their own struggles, and us having to manage them and kind of coach them through a lot.
So who ordered the heads?
The contractor.
Okay. Wow. All right. And if you could also go to slide 104, the graph shows a big jump in sidewalks, miles of sidewalks, flat line, and then a big jump from 16 to 19. Is that just how the data was captured?
Yes, sir, Member Carbone. We believe that it was part of how it was captured and the resourcing up at different times of our GIS team and being able to pull in different data sets to get you to the 617 that we're confident in today.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the 364, 06, 09, 13, and 16, it's all the same number. Same thing, yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Eric, can we pull up slide 121? So on our pothole program here, how's that rotating? Is it each day you're going through one section, or are you attending a week, or what timeline?
Yes, sir. Each day we're focusing on one section, matching again the success of some of our other program-based approaches, and this allows staff to stay in a dedicated area, resolve the known work orders, and work within the next couple of months to a point where we believe that we'll be proactively canvassing each of those areas and proactively filling potholes before they're actually reported. But yes, sir, one zone a day.
So each week, each section's getting 1 day?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Good deal.
We are piloting that, I should say. We are piloting that, and we'll continue to monitor and measure success and expand or collapse the program as we need to make sure that we're successful.
Okay, so we're in a learning curve right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments? Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know who's in charge of advancing the slides tonight and going back and forth. You should be in charge of it always. This is the fastest I've ever seen it switch. So, Brent, if you can please bestow upon her.
Her skills.
Thank you.
Who put their hand up? Priya?
Priya, yeah.
Priya's got a lot of other big challenges that we want her time focused on, but we appreciate the efforts tonight for sure.
Amazing.
You mentioned the number, and it's there. Yeah. So, Eric, Lorenzo, Trent, on the whole PCI and pavement maintenance discussion that you put in here, if we spend 1.1, if we spend 3, if we spend 5, what are you looking for tonight in direction from council?
So maybe we could jump to slide 114, and appreciate the question, Mayor. I think it's really important, and challenge Priya. Can you jump to the one that shows the asphalt versus the concrete? I don't know what slide it is. I think this shows what we have to do to keep that steady state annually, and where we've been, and what that'll do. I think, and this is all to me, to take a big picture analysis of what we've seen. It's a different one, I believe. No, this is good.
Because this is a policy question.
Yeah, this is good. And so what we really are seeing is that it's the asphalt streets that have degraded significantly since our last couple of surveys. And that's where we've put a lack of dollars into our preventative maintenance, as well as maintenance and rehabilitation of those roads. So I think it's very important to understand, the red on here, the asphalt is really growing to the left of this chart, which is bad, and that our concrete streets are still in relatively good to very good condition. So we need to address that red. And at the same time, we need to start being proactive about everything that's in the blue and the red stuff that's over to the right side of this chart. And so, that's really what that 5.97 million does. It provides the dollars to not only, deal with what's in a really bad condition, but to also do the preventative maintenance so we extend the life of what is in good and very good condition, so that we're not reconstructing those early. We're getting the full life out of those. So we had the discussion in February about some funds that are potentially available, that we could go after some additional asphalt work this year. And I think that's one of the the questions tonight is, do we allocate more out of those resources, and what's the additional amount that the council's willing to allocate, this year? And then as we move into our budget cycle, we'll look at a plan of how we increase that operating budget year over year until we get it to a point where we have a sustainable program.
Yeah, and with that, if I remember the discussion back in February, there is a limit on what we can add to the existing management of projects, and so remind council what that limit is, because
So I think the teams, if we contract out a lot of asphalt work over the next 9 months, we can take just about anything thrown at them. So it's really, I think we had identified up to around 5. Victor here. So yeah, so we had identified around $5 million or so. The funds we looked at for putting into the asphalt street program, we'd identified up to about $4.5–5 million. Yeah. So I think we could go to that extent or anywhere in between, but I think it's obvious we need to infuse the street program with additional dollars and make that sustainable moving forward.
Right. Okay. With that,
And I think one other thing I just wanted to comment on and address is you saw in there, a plan to, much like we did with the drainage team, to ramp up the street maintenance team. And of course, that's an ideal plan of how we can do that over the short order. We're gonna look to do that as quickly as our overall priorities allow over the next few years. But what that does is, that doesn't mean we're going to be out there doing all the paving and all the work and all that stuff. It really just means we're able to do the preventative maintenance. We're able to do some of the larger work that we can't do now that we need to be able to do quickly, to be reactive and proactive. And then we would still have work that we would do with the county, and we would still have work that we would contract out to be done.
Thank you, Mayor. Trent, I think it'd be you, maybe Eric, as far as if we want to get specific streets, just kind of get an understanding. I know we had some sprinkled in there, but are there streets that we could get a score just for that street?
Just the specific street?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we can pull out a PCI for any street if you let us know what street you're interested in.
So if we send an email to you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Patel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the question in my head goes, do we have a traffic count on these streets? I mean, some of these streets may not have the traffic vehicles on it where you go justify spending $1 million paving it compared to some other street that you can use it. It may be scored a little higher, but you might get a better, I guess, bang for your dollar because more vehicles travel. How do we justify some of these streets that may not really have that traffic to say, do we really want to go spend this money or do we want to use it somewhere else? I mean, are we just looking at the score to say we're going to go pave it, or are we going to actually look at both the score and the traffic count?
Member Patel, it's a great point. One thing that I'll call your attention to, and I know it's kind of challenging to see in this image, but although we've listed several roadways, in not all cases is the data-driven approach intended to improve the entire width of the road or the entire span of the road, length of the road. They could be localized spot repairs to keep that PCI up on average across the entire community. So it is a targeted approach, but it may not necessarily be, to your point about traffic counts, it may not necessarily be a lower volume road has the entire road constructed, but there may be 50 yards, 100 yards of that one lower volume road that does need to be improved to improve the safety to our commuters. So they may be more localized or spot repairs than is easy to see on this image here, sir. And that is indicative of all three of the funding options that we've presented, sir.
So, Eric, what's the plan? The county kind of switched on us this year, and I understand why. I mean, their asphalt streets are literally all over the county, and they're facing the same situation that we are, just on a much bigger scale. So instead of doing rebuilds, they're looking at doing overlays only. So if you look at the list of projects, see what page was that? 119. I look at how much of this in potential improvements is overlay, how much of it's mill and overlay, and how much of it's rebuild.
Mayor, we would need to go back and run a report through our system and actually separate those out. We have that information, it's all available, but I'd rather be able to present you with a comprehensive plan for each one of those, if that's appropriate.
What I see here is not all, I mean, a lot of this is neighborhood, but at the same time, I think there are some collector, type streets on there. I noticed Veterans not on this list. Veterans is in pretty rough shape. Magnolia South in quite a few places, but so I guess that's the part that I'm struggling with is I'd rather see us get caught up or do what we can to get caught up. So I don't have a vote on it, but I'd be more inclined to push the limits of what we can get on the street this year and done, especially to Member Patel's, point. We have a PCI, but we also have, highly trafficked roads. And so if there's a way to combine those that are at a PCI index that needs it at the same time, they're, highly traveled, I think that makes sense. So, and I know some of these, is there a difference between, I guess, the green, the blue? Okay, I see what you're, okay. I see.
Yeah, we're just trying to depict the
If you're gonna
previous
spend
three
$6 million,
slides, the maps.
then you get it all. And,
Right.
And if you're gonna spend one, then you get the green. Got
Right.
it.
And I believe Veterans is covered either in the CIP or under the current program. So that's why you don't see
Well,
it.
under the current program with the county, it was there, but that was a rebuild. So I wasn't sure if it was gonna be a rebuild or an overlay. What's needed there? That's why I was asking that question.
So one of the things to keep in mind, I think, if you can go back to the other slide and mind the misnumber, but it's the planned work locations through FY28. We kind of touched on it. Some of the longer stretches of roadways are programmed between 25 and 28.
Okay.
So we will address those as part of some sort of capital improvement project. I think where we're talking about the 1 million or 3 million or whatever range of funding we get, those are going to be more localized, smaller scale projects.
Got it.
So I think you see Veterans on this list because we have the Veterans Drainage Project, which puts the box culverts in from basically Walnut to Mary's Creek.
Right.
And part of that, we included a rebuild of the road when we get done with that drainage project. So that's why you see that one in blue. And so basically everything in blue is either captured by the state or the CIP. Is that correct?
Right.
And then I think we're facing another rough summer. At least that's what I'm hearing. The prediction is we're having a potential drought again this summer. That means our asphalt streets are just going to take that much bigger hit. And I don't know what we do to gear up for that other than we live through it.
Yeah, live through it. And I think, start for the long term when we start doing some of these preventative maintenance things, when you've got a robust joint and crack sealing program, when you've got a robust, chip seal or overlay program, a lot of these roads, when they fall apart, it's because, you have the drought, you have the shrink and swell, you get cracks down into the subgrade, and then when it does start raining, that's when your subgrade falls apart. If you've got a robust, joint and crack sealing or overlay program, you can minimize, how much of the subgrade's getting that moisture down into it when it does start raining, and and reduce some of the effects of that. So moving forward, I guess one of the asks or the questions tonight is, are we prepared to go ahead and start bring back something to council to authorize using some of those other funds, so that we can move forward with accelerating some of the work that is planned for this year and start accelerating the future work?
Yeah, from my point of view, I'd like to accelerate what we can. To Mr. Patel's point, like I said, we've got a PCI, but at the same time, if we've got traffic data.
Yeah, and we do, and I think that's recognized when you look through here. We are, especially when you look at this map, we are hitting many of the major roads that carry a lot of the traffic that are still asphalt on this map.
I think staff would like to see, council kind of weigh in on that, see what your thoughts are. I don't know if anybody's willing to mention it.
Mayor, I'm happy to look at that. I think it certainly justifies with the growth we have, but my only concern is I would like to see which projects move forward based on traffic data. That's my only caveat.
Yeah, I think when we bring it back, we'd absolutely show you what the plan, what the specific roads are. You saw a list there, but we could bring back some additional information on, we don't have traffic counts on all of those roads, but we could definitely, start categorizing them by thoroughfare and major collectors and minor collectors, and then local streets, to help with that prioritization.
And when do we authorize the county partnership this year?
Mayor, we're still in conversation with the county, and so we're continuing to refine the plan forward. We anticipate being able to present that to you within the next 2.5 months.
With the change in the county's scope of what they want to work on, we've had to go back and restart those conversations.
I knew that changed this up a little bit. Anybody else got an offering on that?
I'll throw my 2 cents in, Mayor. I'm happy to accelerate any fixing of any infrastructure in our city, especially the roads. I would like to see more of a global map that encompassed, the drainage projects and the repairs, just so we have a full picture of it.
So this map includes that. So everything in the blue here is things that are in the CIP. So like when you see, some of the areas it's more of the area outlined. Those are going to be some of your projects that are drainage based, but we included the overlay of the streets within that drainage project. So kind of that one in the southwest quadrant, that's going to be your East Circle, West Circle, Shady Crest area. So that's a drainage project, but we included in the drainage project to redo the roads when we got done, because we know we'll tear them up doing the drainage project. So those are all depicted in here.
Gotcha. And this also includes, because I'm seeing the TxDOT roads as well.
So it includes TxDOT work. It includes our capital improvement program work, like Hughes Ranch Road and Macawa, and then the drainage projects.
Like Fights on here, it's a drainage project.
Right.
Okay.
And then the ones you see that are not in blue are really the targeted ones from our asphalt program, our annual operating budget asphalt program.
And I would also add that's with the partnership through PEDC, who has signed up in some of those as well.
That's correct, and the county program as well. So this encompasses everything.
Okay. Last call. Anybody else have something? All right. Was that? Where are we in the presentation? Is that it?
Yes, sir. That concludes everything for the workshop tonight. We will we'll take a look at those funding sources, bring back something that we think makes sense for this year, and then if there's any remaining from things that are available, we can look at spreading some of that to next year as well. But
what's our timing on bringing that back?
Oh, I mean, ideally we do this with our mid-year budget adjustment. I think because we're going to have to actually make a budget adjustment, and we've put in some parameters within our financial policies that limit our budget amendments that we do every year. So we'll have to take a look at those policies, see if it makes sense to bring something back sooner rather than later, but no later than mid-year. But we'll look at that and I'd like to do it sooner so we could get some work, additional work done this building season for
Actually
asphalt.
on the street.
Yeah, on the street and done this year or before it gets cold again.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you, staff. As always, great job. Great presentation. A lot going on. Can't wait to see, especially the sidewalk repair and gaps, get that annually moving and working, getting this stuff caught up over the next several years, where then we can hopefully, fingers crossed, we can maintain it on an annual basis. So hopefully we can do the same thing with roads. It's just going to be a little bit bigger task, but take a little bit longer. But I thank every one of you for the work that you put into this and this presentation. It is a global look at all of our streets and pavement, as well as drainage. Great success with our drainage program and our maintenance program, and hopefully we can build that and show that success and do the same thing with streets over time. So thank you for that. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 5:51.